$9,300, then $6,900, now $11,200. And this is the best number of the three, because this shell is 24 by 36. 864 square feet at roughly $13 per foot. The unit price just dropped below both previous videos, exactly as the fixed cost math from last time said it would. And that size unlocks a claim I am going to defend with sources. For enclosed space per dollar, this shell outsizes everything the tiny living industry sells. Tiny homes, shipping containers, park models, all of it. 3 measurements decide whether that claim survives: footprint, ceiling. And a third one, the measurement where every tiny home on the market fights back, where the arch's own geometry works against it. I stress test my own claim against that third measurement at the end, and it barely survives. Let's run all 3. Third delivery of this series, and the truck looks identical. 1 or 2 pallets, corrugated arch panels, 1 type of nut and bolt, an assembly manual, state-stamped engineered blueprints. The only thing that changed is how much steel is stacked on the skid. The footprint is 24 by 36, 864 square feet. At $11,200, that works out to roughly $12.96 per square foot, sitting mid-band inside the verified 2026 kit range of $6 to $20. Now watch the series arc pay off. The 480 square foot shell from last video ran $14.40 per square foot. This one is 80% more floor at a lower unit price, and nothing about the steel got cheaper. The engineering package, the factory setup, the freight, the fixed costs I walked you through last time are the same bills, spread across more feet. The curve I described in the abstract is now sitting on a pallet in front of you. Everything else carries over unchanged. No end walls in the box, no base connectors, no doors. The kit is the arch, and the arch is not the building, which means the mandatory sentence comes early this time. This is a shell. A tiny home shell is the beginning of a home, not a home. And that sentence applies to every shell in this video, not just mine. When tiny home builders sell prefab kits described as structural frameworks or weather-tight shells starting around $10,000, the same rule holds. Shell means shell, whoever stamps the invoice. So the comparison ahead is shell against shell wherever the market allows it, and clearly flagged where it does not. 3 measurements are coming. But to outsize everything, we first have to define everything, and the definition is stranger than you think. A tiny home is not a style. It is a legal size class. The International Residential Code defines a tiny house as a dwelling of 400 square feet or less, excluding lofts. The American Tiny House Association draws the same line. Below 400, you are in the category. Above it, you are just a small house. And the average American tiny house does not flirt with that ceiling. It sits at 225 square feet, loft included. Here is the question almost nobody asks. Why is the ceiling there at all? Follow each structure back to its ancestor. The tiny home on wheels inherits road law. To travel without escort vehicles and special permits, a trailer load stays within 8 feet 6 inches of width and 13 feet 6 inches of height. Every thou ever built was designed inside that box before the first wall went up. The park model inherits RV law. It caps at 399 square feet because at 400 it stops being a recreational vehicle and becomes something the state regulates differently. The shipping container inherits maritime law. ISO standards fix it at 8 feet wide, exterior, forever 7 feet 8 inches, once you are inside the steel. A 20-footer gives you 160 square feet. A 40-footer gives you 320. No negotiation. Even the mortgage system enforces the ceiling from above. FHA loans require 400 square feet minimum, so the entire category sits deliberately below the financing floor. Now the contrast. The Quonset inherited Navy logistics, ship it anywhere, bolted together on bare ground. No highway ever shaped it. Width runs to 100 feet. Length extends in 2-foot increments. Every structure in this comparison is exactly as big as its ancestors' law allowed, except one. Time to measure them against each other. 5 structures, 1 question. How much floor does a dollar buy? Start with the arch, since its number is on the thumbnail. 864 square feet at $11,000. $200, roughly $13 per square foot. Shell stage. Now the tiny home, shell against shell. Prefab tiny home kits, sold as structural frameworks or weather-tight shells, start around $10,000 for footprints capped at 400 square feet and averaging 225. Run the division at the cap and you get $25 per square foot. Run it at the average and it climbs toward $44. Nearly double to triple the arch's rate for a fraction of the floor. For scale, the finished numbers. A completed tiny home averages $30,000 to $70,000 to build, at $150 to $450 per square foot, with the national average sitting at $300 to $400. And listen to how the tiny home industry's own cost guides explain it. A tiny house still needs a full kitchen, a bathroom, an electrical panel, and HVAC. And those fixed costs get spread across very little space. That is the identical sentence from my last video, arriving from the other side of the market. This math was never Quonset math. It is building math. The container path. A finished single 40-footer runs $25,000 to $80,000 for 320 square feet. Want more floor? 2 containers joined. 640 square feet at $70,000 to $120,000. 3, roughly 1,000 feet at $100,000 to $180,000. The floor grows in expensive welded steps, and the Thou and Park model cannot enter this race at all. They are bound at $399 and $400 by definition. No dollar amount buys the 500th square foot. Measurement 1. Footprint per dollar. The arch wins. And it is not close. But how is that physically possible? The answer is the mechanism. Every competitor's size limit is written in a law book somewhere. The arch's limit is written in physics, and physics is far more generous. Start with the span. The arch is its own load path. The panels that shed rain are the panels that carry snow, curving continuously into the foundation perimeter. No interior posts. No load-bearing walls. All 864 square feet arrive as one uninterrupted volume. Compare the container. Cut an opening in its corrugated wall, and you must reinforce the frame you just weakened. Join 2 containers, and you are not adding space. You are performing structural surgery, which is exactly why the 2-box price jumps to $70,000 and beyond. Then the length. These kits are modular by design. 2-foot panel sections, stackable down the pad, width available to 100 feet. Want 24 by 40 instead of 24 by 36? Add panels, the cost of length is close to linear. No tiny home, container, or park model can say that sentence. Their dimensions were fixed the day their ancestors' regulation was signed. And the road never touched this building. The kit ships flat on 1 or 2 pallets, so the finished structure never had to squeeze down a highway. It never inherited the 8'6" width that silently designed every tiny home on wheels in America. The strength ratings carry over from earlier in this series. 140-mile-per-hour certified wind configurations, snow loads of 30 to 70 pounds per square foot. One caveat, and I want it on the record now. The arch pays for all of this in shape. Hold that thought, it is the third measurement. The competitors are limited by law. The arch is limited by geometry. 2 measurements down after the next section. The third is where the category gets its revenge. Stand at the center of a 24-foot arch and look up. The peak sits roughly 12 feet above you. Earlier in this series, the 30-foot arch peaked at 15. The geometry scales with the width, and even this mid-size span clears anything the tiny living world can build. Now, run the same test inside the competition. Step into a standard 40-foot container, and the ceiling is 7 feet 10 inches. A tall person raises an arm and touches steel. The high cube buys you 1 more foot, 8 feet 10, and conversion guides recommend it specifically because insulation, framing, and finishes eat into that headroom before you ever move in. The width is worse, 7 feet 8 inches, wall to wall, forever. Your floor plan is a corridor before you draw a single line. The tiny home on wheels has it harder still. Its total height, trailer, floor, walls, and roof together, must stay under 13 feet 6 inches to use the road. That is why the classic tiny home bedroom is a loft you crawl into. Nobody stands up in a thou loft. You kneel. By Federal Highway design. The park model runs RV frame ceilings. Same story, softer edges. Under the arch, the story inverts. The curve overhead makes the volume read larger than the floor plan. And with 0 load-bearing walls, the 864 square feet arrange however you want bedrooms where you want them, not where the axles allow. Measurement 2, ceiling and volume. The arch wins by feet, not inches. 2 for 2, and if I stopped here, this would be an advertisement. So now the measurement I promised in the first minute, the one where I take my own claim and try to break it. Here is the strongest argument against everything I just said. It comes from my own last video. On full radius arch models, the curved walls surrender roughly 25 to 30% of the floor area near the edges. Where the steel meets the slab, the wall leans in over your feet, space that exists on the plan and disappears in practice. And every competitor in this comparison is immune. A container gives you 100% of its floor. So does a tiny home on wheels. Their walls are vertical, mine are not. So run the stress test. On screen, worst case first. Take the 864 square feet and apply the full penalty. 864 times 0.7 to 0.75. That leaves roughly 605 to 650 genuinely usable square feet before framing a single knee wall, before buying anything back. Now hold that wounded number against the category. 605 usable square feet is still 1.5 times the entire legal tiny home ceiling of 400. It is nearly double the 320 of a 40-foot container. It beats 2 welded containers, 640 on price, by $60,000 or more. And it is within reach of 3 containers' footprint at roughly 1/10 of their finished cost. The claim survives its own worst measurement. Wounded, not dead, and the wound is treatable. Knee walls frame 12 to 18 inches inside the skin by the edges back, at interior finish prices a cost, not a catastrophe. And straight-walled S&P models shift the trade-off further before you spend $1 inside. If I had only shown you measurements 1 and 2, this would be an advertisement. Measurement 3 is why it is an investigation. Size is settled. Now, everything the tiny home industry still does better, and there is a real list. Outsizes is one verb. Here are the verbs the tiny home industry keeps. Start with the concession that matters most, because it beats my thumbnail number. A used 40-foot shipping container runs $1,800 to $3,500 delivered as a bare weather-tight box. That is roughly $7 per square foot, nearly half the Arch's shell rate. If 320 square feet is genuinely all you need, the container wins this series' own metric, and honesty requires me to say it plainly. The Arch's victory is contiguous scale. It is not the cheapest possible square foot, and it never was. Second verb, moves. A tiny home on wheels rolls away from a zoning dispute. The Arch is permanent, permitted, and inspected, which is a strength on a deed and a weakness in a fight with a county. Third, borrows. Thous, with RVIA certification, qualify for RV loans, and tiny home builders partner with specialized lenders as a matter of routine. The Arch still carries the classification problem from earlier in this series. Appraisers filing steel arches under agricultural or temporary. Neither world touches FHA below 400 square feet, but the tiny home industry built its financing workarounds years ago. The Arch world has not. Fourth, finishes cheaper per project. Stack this series' verified line items at 864 square feet. Slab, foam, end walls, connectors, electrical, plumbing, interior, and a self-managed finish lands roughly $50,000 to $85,000 all in, under the categories $300 to $400 per square foot norm. Yes, but nobody should hear $11,200 and think home. That number is a shell, and this channel does not let shells impersonate houses. And depreciation is a tie nobody wins. Tiny homes typically do not appreciate. Thous depreciate on their trailers, and the Arch's appraisal treatment is not better, just different. One page, 3 measurements, 1 verdict. The title says, Outsizes everything. After 3 measurements, here is exactly how true that is. Footprint per dollar. The Arch wins decisively. 864 square feet at $13 a foot, against a shell market charging double to triple for a quarter of the space. Ceiling and volume. The Arch wins by feet. 12 at the peak, against 7 to 10 in a container and a loft. You kneel in under a highway height limit. Usable floor. The Arch wins wounded. 605 to 650 honest square feet after paying its full geometry tax. Still 1.5 times, a category that is legally forbidden from crossing 400. So here is the precise verdict, and I want the wording exact. Nothing in the tiny living market delivers this much contiguous enclosed space for this money. One structure delivers a cheaper square foot in a smaller box. Nothing delivers a bigger room. Step back, and the 3 videos become one argument. The first priced the finish. The second priced the fixed costs. This one priced the space. Same arithmetic, 3 angles. And this time, the tiny home industry's own cost guides made the argument for me in the same words. It was never Quonset math. It is building math, and it does not care whose logo is on the kit. And the structure carrying that math has been standing on Pacific Islands for 80 years without asking anyone's permission. So, 2 answers in the comments, and make them specific. First, 320 vertical square feet in a container, or 600 curved ones under an arch. There is no wrong answer, but your answer decides your build, your budget, and your county paperwork. Second, which measurement moved you the floor per dollar, the 12-foot ceiling, or the stress test that almost broke the claim? I read every comment, and I answer build questions personally. Here we cover alternative builds every week. Real costs, real timelines, what works and what does not. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you on the next build.